Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Mahwah Board of Education for October 14th, 2020. Mr. Bleeker, would you please take roll call? Oh, let me read the COVID disclaimer. Excuse me. Due to the COVID-19 health crisis, this meeting of the Mahwah Board of Education will not be physically open to the public. This is to ensure we follow best practices for social distancing. The board meeting will be live streamed to the public via Zoom. During the public portion of this meeting, members of the public can participate through the Q&A feature of Zoom. All participants must provide their name and address, and your comment and/or question will be read and included in the board's public record of the meeting, just as it would for a standard meeting. Mr. Bleeker, could you please take roll call?
Ms. Conoco.
Here.
Dr. Morthy.
Here.
Ms. Saccone.
Here.
Mr. Copland.
Here.
Mr. De Silva.
Here.
Mr. Denise.
Here.
Mr. Gallo.
Here.
Mr. Kazmarski.
Here.
And Ms. Barron.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Copland.
Sure. I'm just saying what that was for, because I think we were all on mute, so nobody heard probably what the moment of silence was for.
Okay, I know that we were all on mute. We just had a moment of silence for Chase Miola. Thank you, everyone. Agenda questions. Please limit your questions at this time to resolutions under new business on this agenda. As a matter of fairness, you are asked to limit your questions to no more than one and your remarks to no longer than 3 minutes. If you are here representing a group, please identify yourself, the group, and your position in the group. If you are here as an individual, please give us your name and address. This section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. Please specify the resolution you are referring to in your question. May I please have a motion to open to the public? Mr. Copland, second by Mr. Gallo. We'll wait a few moments to see if we have any questions or comments from the public.
Ms. Barron and members of the board, there is one question that has come in during this question portion of the board. It's from Mr. Michael Doris, MEA. Could you speak to the special counsel? There is an agenda item on the agenda related to special counsel. For members of the public, this did get adjusted slightly on our agenda. I'm going to speak about it more during my BA report. It did get moved to the end of the meeting so that we can discuss it after a full update has been given to the executive committee, to the full board. The Board of Education, the executive committee of the Board of Education has been updated on this, and the full board will be updated later. This is to address a confidential matter within the district.
Thank you, Mr. Bleeker. So nothing else? That's it?
No other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to close to the public. Ms. Connick, seconded by Ms. Zaccone. Dr. Fitz, do you have a report for us this evening?
Yes, I do have a report for you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Muted.
Okay. Yes, I have a report for you, Madam President. I'm going to talk about my experiences, between the last meeting and this meeting, some observations that I've had a chance to make and some experiences that I had. I want to tell you that virtual learning does not always mean sitting in front of a computer. I've had the opportunity to observe teachers and students out in the fresh air, getting instruction and completing assignments. I think this is marvelous. If you walk through our schools, you'll see an incredible display of the students' artwork. It's a showcase, and it's really, really worth seeing. Technology is supporting all of our endeavors, instructional, finance, whatever they are. We are basically operating at about a 100% efficiency level with technology. The bandwidth allowed us to get instruction out, receive information. That's moving fine. I want to tell you about the school nurses. The school nurses are incredible. They are on the front line of keeping our staff and students healthy, and I deeply appreciate their services. The staff is working with parents from an instructional point of view and from an emotional point of view of helping them to manage the overwhelming tasks during this period of time in dealing with the health issues that we are confronted with. It is remarkable to see how patient and how tolerant and how informative they are with our parents. Facilities are sparkling. You really need to just come in and see them. So I want to thank the custodians and the grounds crew for maintaining our facilities. We just celebrated the National Custodian Day, which was October the 2nd. And that in appreciation for all of that work, I'd like to thank them who are just working tireless. I was out there this morning. They still over in the building, even though we're not in operation fully. But they are working tireless to keep these facilities clean and healthy. And I mean, it's consistent. Bathrooms, floors, wiping down, frequently touch points. They are doing a remarkable job. We will continue to assess and reassess our instruction, our procedures, and every aspect of our work as we go along. That's what we're doing here. Looking at what we do, how we do it, when we do it, and can we do it better, and how we can communicate with all of our stakeholders out there. Going forward, we are open to change. We welcome communications because it can help us to be more responsive to the needs of the clients that we have to serve. Our new normal is challenging for all of us. It's challenging for students. It's challenging for students of all ages, our teachers, our administrators, and certainly our parents. So I want to personally thank everyone for doing the best that they can in what truly is an impossible situation that we've all found ourselves in. Thank you.
So we have an HIV assessment presentation for Lisa Rizzo. I was on mute, excuse me. I see we have an HIV self-assessment presentation by Lisa Rizzo. Lisa, would you like to give us that presentation?
Absolutely. You have your screen, Kyle, or you want me to pull mine up? So this evening, I'm going to be presenting for you the self-assessment that's mandated on an annual basis for the school district. Typically, I give this presentation at the end of August, but obviously we were rather busy with reopening the district, and now seems like a great time in which to share the data from the 1920 school year. The self-assessment is comprised of the district school safety teams in each building, reviewing the performance of the school based on the rubric brought by the Department of Ed. The principal and the school safety team gather their evidence and self-assess, and then they review the scores with me, and I ultimately have the right to override or support the scores that were presented by each building. The rubric consists of 8 elements in which we are assessed. You can see them here. They range from assessing ourselves in our HIB programs to making sure that we are following the investigative procedure, to the methods by which we report all of our HIB. So this is the rubric. These are the core elements in which we assess ourselves. The district has the opportunity to assess themselves from a score of 0, meaning does not meet the requirements, to a score that either exceeds or meets, and then 2 meaning meets the requirements. For the most part, the district is historically somewhere within meeting or exceeding the requirements. The maximum score that any building can be rated is a 78. And ultimately, the district grade is the average of all of the scores from each of the schools. Mahwah High School evaluated itself as 76 out of a 78, and you can see that they rated themselves in maximum scoring in the following areas. You can keep going each school, Kyle. Ramapo Ridge Middle School also rated itself a 76 out of 78. Joyce Kilmer, self-assessed at a 77 out of a 78. Betsy Ross, also a 77 out of 78. George Washington rated itself a 76 out of 78. And Lenape rated itself a 77 out of 78. The district average, which will be presented to the Department of Ed for the 1920 school year, is a 76.5 out of a possible 78 points. In all core elements, every building scored either meets all requirements or exceeds all requirements. A little information about HIB cases that were investigated during the 1920 school year. There were a total of 43 investigations conducted. That means that paperwork and formal interviews were initiated on 43 cases. Any case that is referred to as harassment, intimidation, or bullying is formally investigated by the district. There is no returning back and saying, no, I want to take it back. Once the words harassment, intimidation, or bullying are expressed, the building is complied to investigate. And of the 43 investigations that we conducted, 9 were actually confirmed cases of harassment, intimidation, or bullying. This is a breakdown of total investigations and total confirmed. I spanned the range from the 2015-2016 school year on the rightmost column to the left column of the 1920 school year. So you can see, if you focus in on the 1920 school year, that our middle school, our high school had 4 investigations with 1 confirmed case. Going down, you'll see that the Ridge had the most investigations and resulted in 6 confirmed cases. We know historically, and anyone who works with adolescents, and particularly in the area of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, unfortunately, this is the age range in which it is most likely to appear. And fortunately, it's also the age range where we have a wealth of supports in place in order to address it. Joyce Kilmer conducted 5 investigations, none of which were found to be confirmed. Lenape Meadows, the one case that it investigated was founded. Betsy Ross as well, and George Washington investigated 1, and it was not confirmed. What we know to be a matter of fact and relative to the commitment that I made to the district when I was assigned to be in charge of harassment, intimidation, and bullying is that all cases that are referred to the district were investigated. There is no discretion in Mahwah Public Schools. We do not have that in our policy. A principal is not permitted to test the waters before conducting an investigation to deem it whether or not it's worthy of an investigation. The minute we're made aware of an issue relative to harassment, intimidation, and bullying, the investigation is conducted, and all that were referred to the district were investigated. And all that were investigated within the timeline set forth by the law. That is essential. If you go back one for me, Kyle. Yeah, the March, go back one more. Perfect. March 2020 through June 2020. When districts went fully remote, there was a concerted effort by the New Jersey Department of Ed and actually the federal branch of our system as well that was very concerned about the potential for online harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And I can tell you that we are pleased to be able to report that during that window of time from March through June, when we were sequestered, there were no reported cases or issues related to virtual bullying, cyber harassment, or misuse of the technology platform as related to HID. So our students and our faculty stepped up and really did what they needed to do online. And actually, to date, we have also no reports of HID through the online platforms. So as annually, we set goals. And so for 2021, our goals are going to be in the core element area 1, indicator C, in which we spend some more time annually assessing our HIB programs, approaches, or other initiatives. And I attempted through the work of the district strategic plan to find a way to align our HIB work to the SEL faction of our strategic plan, in which we are charged now to regularly evaluate our social, emotional, student health and wellness curriculum offerings, as well as create programs and provide tools for parents with the resources needed to support their children both socially and emotionally. So through the strategic plan and through the requirement of the HIB analysis, our school safety teams will be using this as our guiding force to set forth on marrying the strategic plan and HIB to our goals for the 2021 school year. Are there any questions from the board? And if you have them, if you could unmute, that would help me.
Mrs. Rizzo, can you go back to, I think it was the 3rd slide?
All right, go ahead.
Back.
This table? You're still muted, Mr. D.
Can you elaborate briefly on the support in place at the Ridge that you referred to this slide?
Yeah. So what the board was most generous in doing was affording us an additional guidance counselor during the 1920 school year who gave a concerted effort towards working with students who were at risk. Additionally, We worked with all of the guidance counselors and the school safety team to put in a range of supports for students to, one, understand the power of working in positive relationships with each other, as well as the resources that were available to youth if they had questions or concerns about what was going on in their school or to themselves, and the guidance that they needed in order to process relationships with each other. That total number of investigations is high, but the number of actual confirmed is what we need to more so focus on. And the range of confirmed was nothing out of the ordinary relative to middle school type of experiences. So you can see we significantly went down in total number of confirmed cases between the 18-19 school year and the 19-20. So we're still dutifully investigating everything that everyone says they believe to be harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And what we've been able to do through those supports of group team meetings, of all the interventions that are available through the building principal, is we've been able to reduce the actual number of confirmed cases that exist in that building. Again, the middle school will historically be an area where we have to focus.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I saw there was a significant reduction from 2018-19 to 19 and 20. So that's why I asked about those supports that are in place. So obviously they're very effective.
Absolutely, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No other questions from the board.
Hi.
Thank you, Ms. Rizzo. Let's see, we have Mr. Bleeker. You have a report for us this evening.
Good evening, everybody. I do have a couple of items to report and update the board as well as members of the public on. First, regarding the agenda, as we have gone to doing this electronically, I tried to update, pardon me, members of the public of any additional items that were added to the agenda since it was posted earlier this week. We do have 2 additional items that were added to the agenda for the benefit of members of the public who have the version that was posted earlier. I'll read those 2 additional items into the record. The first is an appointment adjustment. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Mahwah Board of Education approves the appointment adjustment of Christina Dacey from kindergarten first grade teacher at Lenape Meadows School to .5 kindergarten teacher at Lenape Meadows School effective October 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. Salary to be column D, step 1, $28,551. This position is necessitated due to the current public health related pandemic. The other agenda item that is new and has been added is an appointment that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the Mahwah Board of Education approves the appointment of Christina Dacey, an instructional paraprofessional at Lenape Meadows School, 3.75 hours a day, effective October 20th, 2020 to June 30th, 2021, salary to be $11,517. The only other adjustment to the agenda from when it was posted, I had mentioned earlier, taking one item that is going to be moved to the end of our agenda and to be action taken by the board after we discuss it with them in executive session. I also have a few other updates for members of the public and for members of the board. Last week, it was determined that we will hold a special meeting of the board on October 28th, 7 p.m. in the evening. That's a Wednesday night. I believe it's going to be discussed a little bit more during our curriculum committee report that is going to bring related to the strategic planning process that was done for much of last year. Right now is open enrollment for health benefits. Our district is going through our health benefit open enrollment for the Board of Education. Health benefits renew and roll over to a new year on January 1st. Any members of the staff who are eligible for health benefits and want to change need to do so during the month of October. This is especially important this year because the state made changes at their level, changing the number of options that employees have available to them. So I need to strongly encourage all members of the Board of Education and employees that have health benefits to please complete their forms and bring it in by the end of the month. Thank you very much to IMAC Insurance Agency who assist us in this process for doing webinar presentations, and for all members of the board and employees that have already submitted their forms. Once again, the deadline to hand in those forms is the end of the month, October 28th. Election Day, just as a reminder, Election Day is November 3rd. It will be a virtual day of learning for our staff and students. The Mahwah Gymnasium at the high school is going to be a polling place. The county stated a need to use that location for a polling place this year. Please, for any members of the public, the polls will be open November 3rd. The Township Clerk, Ms. Cavello, will provide more information. We did have one resident of the community that came to the high school this week to hand in their ballots. For any members of the community, the ballots cannot be handed into the high school prior to Election Day. There are drop boxes located throughout Bergen County. If you want to hand in your ballot early, you can come here to the school if this is your polling location to hand your ballot on November 3rd, but please do not come to the school prior to November 3rd to hand in your ballots. The County Board of Elections has identified where ballot drop boxes are located throughout the county. Two other items I have on finance and facilities. Thank you to the Finance and Facilities Committee. We had a meeting last week. There are several items on the agenda tonight that are related to some of the discussion that we have this evening. Thank you very much to the committee for your support on some of those items. And lastly, to share with the members of the public and members of the board, I participated in a meeting earlier today with some of the township employees, members of the police department, as well as the county, and a contractor that's going to be doing paving and milling on Franklin Turnpike in the coming weeks. Franklin Turnpike is a main thoroughfare within the district. It is going to impact some of our busing and transportation. I want to thank them for inviting me to the pre-construction meeting that was held earlier today. More information will be coming out from the township and from the board as we get closer to that date, and look forward to working with the police to minimize any disruption to our school bus traffic during the days of construction. That is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bleeker. Mr. Fair, if you have a report for us this evening.
Yes, I do. I have a few items to report on. The first this evening is from the agenda, item 15W. In order to support our in-person instructional program, maintaining staffing is important for our district. So we have on the agenda this evening a proposal to increase our substitute pay. So in light of our unprecedented school year, in order to secure our substitute staff members, we request a temporary increase in the rate of pay from $95 a day to $125 a day for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year into June of next year. An e-blast has been crafted and will be sent out to the community upon your approval in an effort to recruit more substitute teachers who may be interested, especially with this increase in rate for the school year. The second piece, I know a lot of people have been asking about contact tracing, the process, our timeline. Recently, the last two board meetings, we've reported and provided some information related to the contact tracing process and what it looks like here. First, I'd like to thank our contact tracers. I'd like to thank our school nurses, our school physician, and our assigned health officer for their medical guidance throughout the contact tracing process. No decisions are ever made without their guidance and their clearance. But it is important to note that each COVID positive case is worked through on a case-by-case basis. What will remain constant is our investigative window. So in that investigative window can move into the weekend. So it's dependent on our COVID positive case investigation and when it is reported. Some of this time may be spent over the weekend, which includes our most recent cases. So if we learn of a COVID positive case on a Saturday evening, if internal district staff members and our medical experts are available, we may be able to conduct contact tracing, and we would initiate our contact tracing the following day, which is Sunday, if we are able. We were able to do that with one of our cases over the weekend. So far, we have been able to conduct contact tracing within our determined 48-hour window, but if this needs to be extended, this too will be communicated to our staff, our students, and obviously our Mahwah community. Based on recent cases, we have also allowed for sports and extracurricular activities to continue. This is because we learned early on in our contact tracing investigation that there was not potential for exposure to students and staff. In cases where there is more potential for exposure or close contacts, we would not allow for the resuming of these activities. Again, we make no decisions without the guidance and clearance from our school nurse, our district physician, our contact tracers, and our assigned health officer. The third piece is agenda item 16A. We have a retirement of Mrs. Suzanne Daly, who is our school library media specialist at Lenape Meadows School. Mrs. Daly has undergone a transformation that has now evolved into one that includes technology, coding, and her work with students to navigate their way through technology in the 21st century. We know that as the media specialist, Mrs. Daly has taken on this role with a renewed passion that is evident in everything that she does. Mrs. Daly has taken on this charge with enthusiasm and flexibility. She is passionate about books, eager to share her knowledge about authors, and is always willing to go the extra mile so that our students are provided with literature across genres that truly takes them on adventure. Her collaborative nature allows her to support building administration and staff with curricular needs across content areas. Suzanne will truly be missed by each and every student and staff member at Lenape Meadows, and we wish her a happy and healthy retirement and a lifetime of reading while she's in that retirement. And lastly, I know that Mr. Copland had requested a moment of silence earlier. I also believe it's important to share a statement from our administrative team regarding the passing of Chase Miola. It is with a heavy heart to learn of the loss of life of Chase Miola, a young man who has gone through the Mahwah school system. Chase will be remembered for his personality, his love for sports and people, and his kindness throughout his years here. Our administrative team sends our thoughts and prayers to the Miola family. While we recognize that there are certainly no words that can change any of this, we are so very sincerely sorry for this tragedy and remain saddened by this loss. That's it for this evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fair. Report this evening. I have no report this evening, but I just want to echo Mr. Fair's statement from the administration that the board feels the same exact way. Thank you very much for putting that into such beautiful wording, Dennis. Board committee reports. Do we have any committee reports for this evening? Mr. Gallo.
As Kyle mentioned, we had a finance committee meeting last week. We had a rather lengthy agenda. I just wanted to highlight 3 items. Kyle presented a review of all the capital projects that have been underway for the last few months and over the summer, most of which are complete or near wrapping up, and you'll see on the agenda tonight a few closeouts. We also did an in-depth review of the changes to the health insurance policy that has been mandated or legislated by the state. At this point, it's a little uncertain how this is going to affect us financially because there's so many changes and so many possibilities of how employees can choose plans and how they pay for plans and what we pay for. So we expect that to be sorted out in January when all the signups are complete. And again, thank you to IMAC for helping guide our employees through the process of making those choices. And it's very important that they pay attention to some of these choices that the new choices that they have. We also reviewed very briefly pandemic-related costs and grant eligibility. Kyle's been very diligent in harvesting grant money to offset some of our pandemic costs. Some of these items are on our agenda this evening. And I just want to thank Kyle and his staff for their diligence and on the facility side, but also in keeping us in a good financial position and keeping us informed of the progress of the pandemic and its related costs in the district. And I want to thank my fellow committee members for all the efforts they put into helping the district stay on a steady course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gallo. Do you have any other committee reports this evening? Yes, Dr. Morthy.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of Curriculum and Instruction, there's a few things. One, I just want to actually highlight that 15cc on the agenda is actually two of the novels that I think I spoke about at the last meeting that will be introduced in the Ramapo Ridge ELA curriculum, Navigating Early and Home of the Brave. So I just wanted to point that out. We are actually approving or voting on that tonight to add to the curriculum there. The other piece during our meeting, we had a very comprehensive report from Ruth Davis, who's in charge of our technology curriculum, regarding parent and tech support for parents. I know if I was a parent, I would have required the tech support. So on the elementary level, they collaborated with elementary principals, and they created, broken up by age groups, was pre-K to 3rd grade and then 4th and 5th, a click on a tile symbol. So it comes up on the screen and there's symbols for them to click on, and it leads them directly to the apps like Brain Pop and some of the ones that they regularly use. At the secondary level, there are tech tips for 6th to 12th grade, things about laptops, you know, if you have questions about Zoom, troubleshooting, and there's also a parent's guide to Google Classroom and G Suite apps. So they're just continuing to build on resources for students and parents. If you want to reach the information, you go to our homepage under departments, under technology and PD or professional development options. That's where some of the parent stuff is. So please take a look if you have questions, if you're having any tech issues, please, the resources are available. The other thing I wanted to highlight is Dr. DeToro informed us that related to some concerns about the size of some of the virtual classroom groups, paraprofessionals were provided to provide additional support in some of those groups. And there was professional development given to the paras about Zoom, how to operate it, and how to do breakout groups so that that would help to have smaller groups. So I just wanted to, again, highlight things and changes that the district and administration is doing to address the needs of our students. Lastly, the strategic plan, and as Mr. Bleeker indicated, we'll be having a special meeting on Wednesday, the 28th. So this is really a culmination of the meetings that we had winter into spring. I'll actually let Dr. DeToro, tossing, speak about that a little bit. We encourage everyone to attend. Please come participate. Even if you didn't attend a previous meeting, it doesn't matter. This is a comprehensive plan for our district, and we need all hands on deck. So, Dr. DeToro.
Thank you. Dr. Morthy said most of what we were going to talk about, and it's this is really a testament to the hard work of so many people. We had hundreds of people come out over the course of the multiple meetings that we had throughout last year. And this is a product of our community, which we're very, very proud of. When we started off this journey, we wanted to talk about having all the voices at the table, and the way that this process was set up allowed for that to happen. So we were able to have people from all aspects of our school district come out, whether it was teachers, students, parents, board members, and other community members were able to contribute. So we're very proud of how we were able to gather all that great information, identify the themes, and put it into a product. So we're excited to present it to the board for for hopefully approval, and then put it into place to guide our district forward. So that's going to come, as Dr. Murthy said, on 10/28. We will be sending out an invite to all the members who attended those special meetings. We would love for them to zoom in and see how their contributions really created a product our district can be proud of. Just to jump on what we were talking about for the parents, please, if you weren't able to catch where you can get those resources, we're going to be sending out a letter to the parents tomorrow, explaining the purpose and worth of really building our proficiency as a community specific to our technology tools, and then showing you exactly where to go dependent on the grade level of your child. So all that information that was just shared will be getting sent out to the community so they have it right at their fingertips.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murthy and Dr. Toro.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim.
Anyone else this evening? Okay. Do we have any board member remarks or additional comments on any reports or non-agenda items? Oh, Mr. Gallo.
I just want to express my condolences to Jeff Bittner and his family on the loss of his father last week. It was a long journey, and I know that they are greatly impacted by his loss. So my condolences to Jeff and his family.
I had a question for Kyle with our first home game, football home game coming up this Friday night. Last meeting, you mentioned something about streaming or videotaping the game. Has that been solidified? Has that been figured out?
That was brought up at the Finance and Facilities Committee last week. The Finance and Facilities Committee asked me to gather a couple of follow-up questions, which I provided them with just earlier today. So we haven't able to bring the full circle around yet, but I anticipate finalizing it with them, getting everybody's thoughts and opinions and making a determination tomorrow.
Thank you. Also want to express my condolences to the Conoco family on the loss of your father.
Yes, Mr. Kozlowski.
My question is for Dennis, not to put you on the spot, but you did bring it up, and I want to thank the administration, especially in the high school, with regards to allowing the co-curricular activities to go on and continue. I think it's very important for the student athletes, band folks, club members, things like that. Question I've gotten a lot from parents in the past week or two is with regards to the 48-hour closures or contact tracing timeframe. And is that a district specific way? Is that an industry standard? Is that, what is that in comparison to other school districts? And can we find a way, if possible, in the safest way possible, of course, to do less than 48 hours if we can? So it's just a question I'm just relaying from, I got it a lot, so figured I'd just ask.
It's a good question. Is it industry standard? No, but some investigative process period is encouraged and actually necessary. COVID positive cases are reported at any time. So as we've shared with other, some of our COVID positive cases, we're hearing about these cases late at night. And while as administrators, we are constantly working, we can't, perform miracles. So early the following day, once we hear of a COVID positive case, it is something that takes priority, because our goal is to have schools open as soon as possible for in-person learning, because we also believe in the importance of in-person learning. But we don't want to do that unless we are absolutely sure that it's safe for everyone to enter a building. So could the 48-hour window be truncated? It could, if we're able to complete everything within 24 hours. Oftentimes, if it's an extensive case, it's important for us and our contact tracers to notify parents if students are involved and gain that information. And then we would have to engage with our staff members here. So it becomes a pretty extensive process. If we're able to expedite the process, though, we can have the school up and running after 24 hours, but it's not a sure thing. That's all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for explaining that, Mr. Fair. Thank you for bringing up that question. Okay, we have old business. May I have a motion to proceed on old business? Mr. Gallo, second by Mr. Kaczmarski. Could you please take roll call on that?
Ms. Conoco.
Same.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
Mr. Cohn.
Yes.
Mr. Copland.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Mr. Kaczmarski.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes. I'd like a motion to proceed on 15A through EE. Dr. Morthy, second by Mr. Gallo. Do we have any comments or questions on any of these items from any board members? Yes, Mr. Copland.
On 15Q, maybe this is a question for Kyle. How many laptops does that amount to? How are they going to be deployed, and what's the timeline on that? And just for everyone's knowledge, it's regarding the digital divide grant in the amount of $60,113 for laptops at JK.
Okay, okay, Mr. Copland, for that, to answer your question, what we are looking to purchase or lease, as we have with other investments in computer technology that we've made over the past couple of years, we're looking to lease these computers. Our goal is to lease about 500 of them. They would be deployed primarily to the JK community. And this would be the device that they have. Those that are with JK will then filter down to grades K-3 for them to use in their classroom environments. We did experience some of what has necessitated this to be done during the middle of the year. Typically, we try not to make decisions and investments such as this in the middle of the year, but we have experienced more of requests for devices to be provided for at-home learning than we initially anticipated, which is why we, Dr. DeToro and I went to the Finance and Facilities Committee and spoke with them last week to get their support and provide rationale for this adjustment, for this decision, and for this agenda item. As it relates to the Digital Divide Grant, that's a grant that was provided by the state of New Jersey for us for this purpose, to be able to provide technology for students who either do not have access to a device or internet connectivity at home. Related to this, there's also another agenda item that's on here, and an arrangement with Verizon Wireless. We do have a couple of community families and students who express a need for that connectivity. They either don't have a Wi-Fi unit or an internet service provider in their area. That agenda item will allow us to provide some wireless hotspots to those students. And so they will be able to connect to the internet and continue to do their assigned schoolwork.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Bleeker. Can you just clarify the 15V about the contract for the superintendent search and what goes into the proposal a little bit from RPAT Solutions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. The Executive Committee of the Board of Education, as we look to put in place a process for hiring a superintendent of schools for following Dr. Fitz, asked me to provide a RFP and put an RFP on the street, request for proposal, for any firms that may want to or have the ability to assist us in that process. That was put out in the month of September. We had 4 firms that submitted a proposal to us. The Executive Committee of the Board and Mr. Kaczmarski interviewed and met with those 4 firms remotely through Zoom last week. After hearing from each of them, reviewing the proposals, reviewing their costs and the pros and cons, we were fortunate to have some statewide as well as national agencies submit a proposal. So it was a nice comparison, a nice mix. It was determined that the best fit for Mahwah is to award a contract RPAT and work with them on the process for selecting the next superintendent of schools for the Mahwah Board of Education. A very, very rough timeline, and we'll discuss this in more detail at a future board meeting after we have a follow-up meeting with RPAT, is to have an advertisement in the paper within the next couple months to collect resumes, most likely by the end of the school year, and begin some interviews in January. Interviews do have to take place after the board reorganizes in January. That is one of the requirements from the Department of Education as it relates to appointing a new superintendent of schools, that the sitting board right now, because it will have a turnover in January, regardless of a change in board members or not, it is going to be the organization of a new board. Any interviews cannot, or any appointments cannot happen until after that date or interviews. So that's going to be a very rough timeline. Goal is to have somebody hopefully appointed and ready to take the helm as of July 1st, if not sooner.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bleeker. Thank you, Mr. Bleeker. Any other questions? Mr. Denise.
Another question for Kyle. Sorry, Kyle. 15R and S. Can you let us? Can you explain what the Amendment 1 is to the CARES Emergency Relief Grant application?
Sure.
And for 15S, the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, is that for reimbursement for COVID costs, or what is that grant for?
Yeah. Okay. So for 15R relates to CARES money. This is money that we received through from the federal government back in, I believe it was May or June. We had at the time submitted a preliminary proposal of how we were going to allocate those funds over various different account lines. We are required to, if circumstances change and we adjust what account lines we're going to spend those monies against. That's what this is going to address. It's going to allow us to still stay within the same overall amount of approximately $160,000 and just apply it to different accounts within that grant. So that's the only amendment that relates to. As far as the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, this is a grant that came from the state of New Jersey. And as you indicated, it is to help with any costs we had associated with our reopening.
Anyone else? Okay, Mrs. Cohn. For Kyle.
It's just a clarification. Am I okay? Just a clarification. You said the resumes for the new superintendent would need to be submitted by the end of the school year. Did you mean end of the calendar year?
Okay, if I did say that, then yes, I did misspeak, Mrs. Cohn. Again, we will present and have a definitive timeline at a future board meeting, but the very preliminary timeline that we had discussed was to advertise either the end of this month or in the month of November and collect applications, resumes by the end of December. So if I said school year, I misspoke. I should have mentioned.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep, of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Bleeker, could you take roll call on those items, please? Thank you.
Yes, we have. We had a motion for 15A through E by Dr. Morton and a second by Mr. Gallo.
It's the Kyle show.
For these items, Ms. Conoco.
Yes.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
Ms. Saccone.
Yes.
Mr. Copland.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes, except abstain on 15W.
Mr. Kizmarski.
Yes.
Ms. Barron.
Yes. Okay, may I have a motion to proceed on new business A through K? Ms. Conoco, second by Mr. Kizmarski. Do we have any board remarks or comments on any of these items before we proceed? Everyone is good. Okay. Mr. Bleeker, could you please take roll call on 16A through K?
Ms. Conoco.
Yes.
Dr. Morthy.
Yes.
Ms. Saccone.
Yes.
Mr. Copland.
Yes.
Mr. De Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Denise.
Yes.
Mr. Gallo.
Yes.
Mr. Kizmarski.
Yes.
And Ms. Barron.
Yes.
Public questions and comments. Now, this section of public participation will be limited to 15 minutes. Second by Mr. Gallo.
Ms. Barron, there are a handful of questions that come in. If I could please remind the members of the public that are submitting their questions, while I do see a screen name associated with you, I still need you to please supply your address within the district so I can may read that into the record. Okay. The first question that we do have came in from Mr. Robert Ferguson. He did state later on in the chat thread that it had been responded to already, but I will, for sake of transparency, read it into the record. Mr. Robert Ferguson, 23 Apper Terrace. This question is for the second public session. Thank you, everyone, the board, administration, teachers, and staff for all the great work you're doing through the COVID crisis. My family, and I think many others, have been very pleased with the way things have been going so far in 2020, in spite of all the challenges. Your dedication is appreciated. A question I've seen repeatedly over the past week regards to the closure of the high school for in-person classes due to a positive case while allowing sports to continue on those days. Would you please explain the rationale for allowing this? And as I stated, Mr. Ferguson later wrote that Mr. Fair answered his question, that we may disregard it. The next question I have from Vita Pieco, 119 Cherokee Lane. They write, when does the district plan to have more in-person instruction or move to a full day schedule? Our students need more instructional time, and why can they not be in school full day with only half the population in person? He also has a follow-up question. When does the district plan to reduce the virtual Wednesday to once a month and not every 2 weeks? How do our schools differ from other districts and or private schools as they are in session full day A/B schedule?
I can begin to answer that. So currently we're in discussions in terms of what phase 2 will look like of our reopening. And that would include any changes in schedule or instructional time. This will also include a discussion of our alternating virtual Fridays. Virtual Wednesdays. Right now, we have our virtual Wednesdays scheduled through the month of November. And again, we're still looking at what that's going to look like moving forward through the school year. To speak to your question regarding other districts and or private schools, right now, to start off the school year, we were doing the best that we could based on the stakeholders in our reopening task force. And we believe that what we came up with to start off the school year was the safest possible solution. Dr. Arturo, do you want to share anything?
Sure. Just to continue the conversation along the lines of our schedule and the reevaluation process. There were a large number of districts who went fully remote to start the year. And then there were questions of why us coming back. And we have a significant commitment to all of our community members to make informed decisions. With that, we created our reentry plan. During that process, we said that we were going to start that evaluation process immediately upon return, but then really dig into it once we get a couple weeks under our belt. Now that we started our 6th week, now is the time to really start to gather as much information we can, inclusive of the data we have in our district, but outside of our district. And we all know that the data outside of our district is telling a story as well. So we need to make sure that we're doing right by all parties involved. And make sure that whatever we decide, we do it in a thoughtful manner. Along the lines of other districts being full day, there is no standard that is set at this time. There are some districts, some that are full day, and there are a number of others that align with our schedule as well. Once we decide to go full day, that is inclusive of lunch, that's inclusive of a number of other factors that we need to be very thoughtful about and make sure that we're doing right by all those involved, students and teachers and everyone in between. So please know I do have the same hope and goal of our students and staff coming in as much as possible, but that also needs to be partnered with, we need to do it in the right way. So that is happening, that will be coming, and hopefully in the very near future, we'll have more information specific to our evaluation process.
Okay. There was another question that came in from a Miss Diane O'Lear, address of 26 Merrill Drive. Her question: will extending the school day to a normal bell schedule be a part of the review of the reentry plan? Alternatively, are the office hours able to be held before school starts and then start the school day later, therefore extending the day later into the afternoon?
Yeah, so right now, this too is going to be part of our discussions moving into phase 2 of our review of the schedule. We also have to be mindful of hours for our staff members while also doing best for our students. So we have to look at a variety of factors before we move into a typical bell schedule or a normal bell schedule, as you shared, Mrs. O'Lear.
Along the lines of, and hopefully I'm reading Ms. O'Lear's question correctly, along the lines of flipping the virtual hours to the front end of the day as opposed to having them in the back end of the day. We have not discussed something like that. The ramifications of something like that, or the considerations is probably a better word, is busing. That's something that we already have a locked schedule with our bus company and have our students coming at a certain time and leaving at a certain time. If we do decide to flip that, that would be have to go through that process. But again, that's not something that we have discussed at this time.
We have another question from Miss Evelyn Slockbauer, 43 Thunderhead Place. If there are any storms during the winter where there are significant power outages, what effect will that have on the number of instructional days that are required for the virtual students? Oh. Yeah, I believe that's the same question, just clarified that it was for the instructional days for the virtual students.
It's interesting because this morning we were just talking about we're working on a notification regarding inclement weather that's going to go out to the community and sent out in at some point in October. So we are looking through the logistics and the different scenarios regarding virtual learning and what that would look like, and in terms of instructional days for students. In terms of requirements for virtual students, the NJDOE has been clear that districts are to be as flexible as possible with regards to attendance. But again, we may receive further guidance from the New Jersey Department of Ed that requires more modifications. But for right now, we're working through scenarios and those logistics, and that should be going out by the end of this month.
We have a question from Miss Allison Thurdreau, 1 Arano Place. How are any students being called as close contacts with staff members with the procedures Mahwah has in place? They are not within 6 feet or for 10 minutes or longer ever.
So this is a very good point, Mrs. Theodoro, because we have a lot of safeguards in place. We have plexiglass in each classroom. I know that our staff members and our students are keeping a distance. I do believe that in an effort to be respectful and respectable of a staff member's space with their students, the children may be listed as close contacts just to be sure that that student is kept safe and is closely monitored as a result.
We have this is not a question, but a statement from Ms. Sylvia Rips, 376 Green Mountain Road. Thank you to the administration and Board of Education for all you are doing to make sure our kids are safe. The teachers are doing an incredible job teaching and engaging the kids and our families, thankful for their dedication and determination during these uncertain times.
Thank you.
Vita Teco also gave thank you for the response in time. Please let us know when the planning is occurring, and do you plan on sending out a survey to parents, community? I believe this is going back regarding the phase 2, if we were to make modifications to the current schedule. Yes, if when we are ready for that, parents definitely will be surveyed and communication will be presented to the community well in advance. Question from Mr. Scott Gaslow, 552 Adirondack Court. I greatly appreciate your email today regarding Halloween and COVID-19 safety. The link brings you to the CDC list of Halloween activities with their level of risk. The first item on the most risky list is traditional door-to-door trick-or-treating. With the ongoing struggle to keep schools open, how can the district make this clear to parents? I'm concerned that JKHSO is selling yard signs announcing the house is open for trick-or-treating. I appreciate that in your email you encouraged everyone to practice the same safety while out on Halloween as they do in school. That would not allow for touching of doorbells, doors, candy, and interacting with random people. Question from Mr. Michael Doris, MEA. Is the district considering having all virtual days in lieu of snow days for the current school year? For Mr. Doris and Mr. Fair, Dr. DeToro, please jump in. I believe that was already stated and answered, that is a discussion that we just came up in discussion earlier today. We're still having ongoing discussions about that and no decision has been made. Mr. Fair, Dr. DeToro. Thank you. Ms. Allison Theodoro, is there a date set for phase 2?
At this time, there's no set date for phase 2. The evaluation of phase 1 is just beginning. The set date that we do have is the invite to our fully remote students who are interested in coming back. Those surveys are sent out today to our elementary and secondary students for a return for our second quarter. I believe that's, I have in front of me, I believe it's November 11th. Please don't hold me to that. But that's the date that we have established for that. But along the lines of phase 2, we're starting to evaluate phase 1 now.
And we have from Miss Jackie Bowers, 7 Thunderhead Place, Baker. Jackie Baker, 7 Thunderhead Place. I'm concerned about the building closures since the beginning of school, which was caused mostly by teachers testing positive. Are teachers required to quarantine from the time they test until they get their results?
They are. As our community knows, we've added the question to our attestation form as of a week ago regarding if a student or a staff member is awaiting test results, they are not to be in the school building. So the answer is yes.
Ms. Barr, there are no further questions in the chat. You may. Nope, we're good. You may proceed to close the meeting to the public if you wish.
Okay. Can I have this? Okay, thank you everyone for your questions, and thank you everyone to your answers here. Appreciate it. May I please have a motion to close to the public? Ms. Conoco, second by Mr. Denise. And then I have a motion to recess to executive session. Ms. Conoco, second by Mr. Coughlin. Okay, we will be.
Because we are doing this through the Zoom webinar feature, we're going to mute ourselves and turn off our videos during the executive session. I'm also going to pause any recording of the meeting right now. We will then return in a short while to close out the meeting and take action on the final item. But video and voice will be turned off for all members of the board.
Okay, may I have a motion to resume to public action meeting? Ms. Conoco, second by Mr. Coughlin. And now may I have a motion to proceed on 22A? Mr. De Silva, second by Mr. Kaczmarski. And could you please take roll call, Mr. Bleeker, on that item?
Okay. Ms. Conoco?
Yes.
Dr. Morthy?
Yes.
Ms. Saccone?
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. De Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Denise?
Yes.
Mr. Gallo?
Yes.
Mr. Kaczmarski?
Yes.
And Ms. Barron?
Yes. Now, may I please have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Gallo, second by Dr. Morthy, and meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.